I remember this when I used to I used to take the bus back home from school. I used to just stare out of the window and I used to look at how different each house was. And I used to
Absolutely.
paint a picture of the kind of person that lived in that house. But now when you look out of your window, you're literally just seeing carbon copies of each other. You know, that builder.
Absolutely. They all look the same.
They all look the same.
Every neighborhood, you can't distinguish one neighborhood from the other. And you're right, because this character. So when I started Delhi Houses, my brief to myself was, what does it feel to live in a Delhi house? Just so that people who are sort of following this account, this archive, can kind of get a sense of what it feels like to live in Delhi.
I know we've covered a bit of this already, but can you take me through the story of Delhi, through the story of Delhi houses and the various neighborhoods that have come up? Let's start at maybe independence. Where were people living? What did the homes look like?
Yeah, I think this is the most fascinating part of the city as well, because you really realize how young the city is, you know. I think pre-independence, most of the city was living in the old part of the walled city that was in front of the Red Fort, which is called Chandni Chowk. And you know, over there also the main causeway was called Chandni Chowk, and then you had segregations of communities. You had from big havelis to small little small little rooms that were in Chandni Chowk. And essentially Chandni Chowk was the most exotic, the richest, most opulent market of the Orient.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Don't Run Into Glass, a podcast hosted by The Citizen. I'm Gayati.
And I'm Anika.
And Anika, what are we chatting about today?
Today you're chatting with me.
With you?
Yes.
And your dogs.
And yeah, the dogs are also part of this podcast today. Today we're chatting about Delhi houses.
And I think this is a conversation that we've been meaning to have. We've had it as well. I think we've spoken about Delhi houses. It's been part of our lives in some way now since you've started it for quite a while.
Yeah.
But tell us, to the audience that might be uninitiated, what is Delhi Houses? How did you come about starting it?
I think Delhi Houses is one of those projects that is absolutely very close to my heart. And I think you know very well when I started it, because it was in that 1 year where we are three best friends, Gayati, me, and Deepika, since college, since first year college, first day, first show, we became friends. And suddenly we found ourselves 1 year, all three of us leaving our family homes and moving on with our lives. And that, I think, was a pivotal moment in my life when I also thought that so many houses have so many histories, and these micro histories sort of build an entire history of a city. And I think Delhi Houses is something that I've been thinking for over 7 to 8 years.
Okay, so you thought of doing this before you actually started it?
Oh, yes. It's always been on my mind. As you know, my background, academic and professional, is deeply in archaeology. So obviously, I look at every thing, especially built architecture, from a historic lens. And I and you alike, being a thorough Dilliwala, driving around the city, noticed certain patterns in the city of, this part may have been built around the 70s, this part may have been built around the 80s, and essentially kind of came to the conclusion that India is fairly a young country. We just celebrated our 75 years of independence, but at the same time, it's an ancient country as well, especially Delhi. The history is the same. Post-independence architecture and slightly pre-independence architecture, that modern period from about 1920s till about the marker at 2000 Y2K, as most of us called it, is a very significant history, and that architectural language, the modernist architectural language, is something that I found to be extremely endangered.
Okay, let me just ask you before we continue, what is the criteria for Delhi houses? Like, why are certain houses considered Delhi houses in your scheme of things or in your cataloging? And why are some not considered Delhi houses? What is the criteria?
Great question. I think I'll start off at the last word that I ended at, endangered. Modern houses that were built around the period from the very early 1900s till the 2000s, till Y2K, are not so old to be considered as heritage houses, but not so new that people still want to continue to live in them. Thus, they are extremely endangered. However, because they are our post-independent free India's first architecture that came about, that people built themselves. Large parts of the city are residential, and a city sort of builds itself around where people live. That's how gentrification works in urban India, right? So I found those houses going down one by one as families are growing, as life moves on. And I don't blame the people for pulling down those houses, but I think the urgency to archive such architecture as the architectural history of Delhi as a city, and how it interacts with the local geography, the local economy, the local histories, and the local aesthetics of the city, I found it very important, because everything that was being pulled down and then rebuilt, most of what was rebuilt was post-contemporary architecture that had a very different language.
Wasn't there something that you'd said once about how the new houses, these builder apartments, these builder structures, they have to be built on stilts, right? So wasn't that one of the
Absolutely.
distinguishing factors between Delhi homes? And then I think in 2000 something, there was a rule that came out saying that the new constructions have to be on stilts, and that has been the advent of modern
More contemporary,
builder apartments.
Yeah, and you're so right in observing that, because the earlier houses, the modern houses, had a significant architect stamp on them, But now, sometime around 2011, I think the city passed a regulation where all houses were told to be bound to be built on stilts. And why is that? Because you had to make more space for parking,
Yeah.
Urbanization, Delhi is a very small area for a very, very dense population. So obviously these things are going to happen. But
they like scratch your car and deflate your tires if you park outside.
I mean, the parking
Someone-
wars in Delhi is its own reality TV, I feel. But, with the advent of stilt housing, the first thing that died were the gardens.
Yeah.
The houses earlier used to have a driveway, and even flats for that matter, the DDA apartments for that matter used to have huge parks in the center. But now most of the housing complexes that are coming about are prioritizing parking spaces, and deprioritizing those green spaces which are more like lawns where children can play. So the death of the garden happened with the stilt parking. Now most of the houses do not have an architect's stamp as much as it did
They
before.
all look the same. I mean, now, like the builder flats, I mean, I really cannot distinguish between one and the other. Of course, the modern amenities are great, like central air conditioning, and the plumbing is more or less sorted, but there's no soul. And
You're
I think
so
that
right.
leads me to my next question. I think, so you and I and a lot of our closest friends, I mean, kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s, without giving our age away, but yeah, we all grew up in quintessential Delhi homes, whether that was a bungalow or a DDA apartment or, a village haveli sort of a setup, whatever it might have been. They were still quintessential Delhi homes. Can you take us through what a day in the life of a Delhi house, like the way you define it, let's say pre-builder flat, how is that different from, let's say, life in a stilted builder flat?
I think stilted flats have so many more amenities that make it just a lot more expensive to live in, number one. And you're right, their character is vastly different from a Delhi house. So what would a day in a Delhi house look like?
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning, first switch on the motor. So your mornings are inundated with the slight whir of the motor pulling up water into your water tank. Then you water the garden. The morning time is the best time to water the garden.
Or the plants or whatever you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your plants. And Delhi houses were known to have seasonal flower routines, seasonal tree routines. You have the spring that is completely flushed with flowers. You have the summer that is completely, it's the bougainvillea takeover. Nothing survives in the heat except the bougainvillea, and the lesser you water a bougainvillea, the more it flowers.
Yeah.
Right? So like some houses are completely covered in the bougainvillea flowers. Then you have the winter where obviously you have the fall where where it smells of, that cardamom smell, and then the very delicate mogra flowers or the parijat flowers come out. So anyway, the mornings are about the garden or tending to your house plants. You go out for a walk in your local park.
Yeah.
Or you do yoga outside your house or in your community complex. You come back, get ready for work, and then drive away or ride away, or take the local transportation and go to work. When you come back, also, summers were more about having coolers in the house. An older Delhi house was more conducive to coolers because some of the houses, maintained the windows to be much smaller. And obviously, for security reasons, they also had grills. So, they made the indoors very darker, which made the long summers bearable inside a house without the air conditioner. Thus, the cooler was more than enough to kind of cool a house. And both you and me have lived in houses where coolers still exist, and they really work very well, kind of maintaining a moderate temperature in the house. And winters become very cozy in sort of these Delhi houses because, again, you have very few drafts coming inside the house. And then the old furnishing, the old rugs, the old carpets, the daris of that are made in India, completely take over the house. So I think the routine of a house was very sort of ecologically responsive to the local environment. However, now the builder apartments are known
Also,
to
before you go on, I feel like the distinct character of each house, like one thing I love about the Delhi Houses Instagram page is that the variety that you see in just not just the exteriors, but even the interiors, but the exteriors are amazing. Like people have really lived out every whim and fantasy of theirs.
Yeah.
Created structures that look like palaces, to like the exposed brick, to the plain white colonial style bungalow. I mean, the variety in
and the vibrancy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I remember this when I used to I used to take the bus back home from school. I used to just stare out of the window and I used to look at how different each house was. And I used to paint a picture of the kind of person that lived in that house. And I used to daydream. And then there were houses I would be like, oh, I would love to live in this house. And this one looks a bit whatever. But now when you look out of your window, you're literally just seeing carbon copies of each other, that builder.
Absolutely. They all look the same.
They all look the same.
Every neighborhood, you can't distinguish one neighborhood from the other. And you're right, because this character, so when I started Delhi Houses, my brief to myself was, what does it feel to live in a Delhi house? Just so that people who are sort of following this account, this archive, can kind of get a sense of what it feels like to live in Delhi. But over time, I came across so many typologies of houses. So the village mansion was one of them, right? And Delhi has a lot of urban villages. I come from one of them in the northern precincts of the city. You know, Singhu border, where the farmer protests happened?
Yep.
So I come from a village that is a Maan village. It was dominated by Maans, and I lived in a house that was a deco-style village haveli that had been built sometime in the 20s, but completely completed in the 1950s. So it had that distinct architecture, typical things of storage rooms for your grains, because it's a village mansion. Most of the people living there are from the farming community. My father comes from the farming community. So the kind of storage rooms you had, the kind of big drums you had to store the wheat and rice was very typical of a village house. And most people living in Delhi do not understand what it is to live in an urban village. So that really gave, an insight. I call that post the anatomy of a village mansion. Moving on from there, we came across, obviously, Delhi is full of Art Deco architecture.
What
Then
was
you
my
have-
house? Was
Your-
this is it in K11? Was
Your
it?
house is very deco as well,
It's
but
Art
it
Deco.
is postmodern deco because it did not have so much as the concrete jalis, but the floors were so opulent because that's very typical in an Art Deco house. I documented one house that was in Kamla Nagar, which reminded me of like your house. Your house would be influenced from a house like that. That house had about 80 rooms. It was for a big joint family, and that family came from a Marwari community, and Marwari community is known to live in those joint families. So what did houses like that look like and they also are living together in certain neighborhoods, So it had so many bedrooms. It had even more rooms for the house help. It had huge open courtyard design. And the one thing that was completely enthralling was the vibrancy of the color in the deco flooring. It also had a fireplace. Old houses had fireplaces. Current day houses do not have fireplaces. So that typology, then it moved on to, the houses that came about in New Delhi. Obviously, we cannot ignore the Lutyens' Delhi houses that also came about, the typical Indian bungalow, the British bungalow with the big
I
verandas.
also love how those houses are.
so
They're
beautiful.
probably like, and I'm glad at least large part of them are conserved because they're, I think, in a part of Delhi where
The Lutyens bungalow zone. So it's very protected area where different construction cannot sort of come up and you cannot pull down those houses that
Thank God.
easily. Yes, but I do want to talk about a little bit later in the podcast about the curse of living in a city of ruins also.
Yeah.
When you have so many regulations and you're meant to preserve it, does the preservation actually happen?
Yeah.
So we'll come to that later. But yeah, the Lutyens' Delhi houses, typical typical Indian bungalow built by the English. Now, the English did everything to keep the sunlight out. Those big verandas, those colonnaded verandas were built so that the sun is out, but you can still get a breeze in, and by the time the breeze comes in, it cools down. Whereas Indian older houses from that period, colonial India, really embraced the concrete jali so that the hot air, especially during the summer months, it's called the loo. The Delhi wind is given that terminology, the loo. When it comes through this concrete jali, which most often morning or evening you would sort of, make wet with your pipe, and that's another routine of the house. In the summer months when this wind comes, most people take their house pipe and wet their garden and wet their driveway so that the dust doesn't come in, right? So when the wind would come through these jalis, it would cool down. So anyway, moving on towards the 70s and the 80s, you started seeing stone facaded houses because maintaining a painted facade was far more difficult, and also the roads had opened up where, people could get the stones from mines in Rajasthan, etc. So these typologies is what I started discovering in the city. And thus, kind of, the city started revealing its architectural history. But what I continue to celebrate on this page is the aspiration of the people in building such sort of architecture. One thing you really liked, and I really liked in these old Delhi houses, are the staircases.
Yes. And I think we all have we had in our homes very distinct
and grand staircases.
Very grand staircases.
Yeah. And, staircases take a lot of room. So these builder apartments right now kind of try to remove the use of the staircase by making, for the right reasons, the house more differently abled, friendly. So thus a lift is preferred these days. But
and also the staircase is like relegated kind of to
a functional use rather
unit.
than something that is more aesthetic, you know. Earlier you had those big balustraded staircases, even in simple houses, the staircase was kind of, and then you had the floating staircase, in the houses of GK you mostly see them. These very, very simple concrete blocks kind of floating over each other with a very minimalistic sort of railing was typical 70s cool. It had a element of futurism to it. That was like very back to the future kind of aesthetic. But now staircases are completely relegated to a fire exit, you know.
That's what they've become, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we're having a great loss of sort of design of the Delhi houses because fewer houses are being made by architects and more of them are being made by builders. And there is a reason, there is a local kind of trend that is also, kind of attributed to something like that. But essentially a Delhi house that is selected for a page is something that is from a particular time period. And what are we documenting is not only the architectural history, but also the history of the people to kind of draw out the habits of a house and the habits of a city, something that we're losing over time.
I know we've covered a bit of this already, but can you take me through the story of Delhi, through the story of Delhi houses and the various neighborhoods that have come up? Let's start at maybe independence. Where were people living? What did the homes look like? Then take me through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s and 90s. And I just want to know, like, which were the neighborhoods people were living in. And I asked this because my mom and my dad used to tell me that they didn't think my home was in Hoskas, right? Like, that's where I grew up. That's where my dad, when he made some money, he built our family home. But when they used to tell me about when they were dating and they were in college, they were like, well, nothing existed beyond Connaught Place.
Correct.
That's where they used to hang out. They used to tell me about the cool bars that they used to go to.
Yeah. And some of them still exist, by the way.
I would love to check that out.
I still frequent some of them.
Really?
Some of them are turned into cabaret bars and now are just those old babu bars that are still quite disco in their appeal.
I think that would be an amazing podcast episode. Let's go check those out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so for instance, Hoskas was considered like an area that didn't even really exist back
Yep.
when they were like growing up. Take me through the evolution of the city. Where were people living? What did their homes look like? When did this DDA explosion come about as well? Because I remember discussing this. You said when nuclear families came about,
Yeah.
then for a lot of people on salaried income, their first own home or individual home was a DDA apartment. Whereas when certain families moved to, let's say, Gulmohar Park was a journalist colony. Defense Colony was a military colony. Hoskas was, people who were like just sort of like making their own homes at some point of their lives in the early 90s or the 80s and 70s as well. So just take me through how the city has grown and how people have lived in the city in the last 50 years.
Yeah, I think this is the most fascinating part of the city as well, because you really realize how young the city is, I think pre-independence, most of the city was living in the old part of the walled city that was in front of the Red Fort, which is called Chandni Chowk. And, over there also the main causeway was called Chandni Chowk. And then you had segregations of communities. You had from big Havelis to small little small little rooms that were in Chandni Chowk. And essentially Chandni Chowk was the most exotic, the richest, most opulent market of the Orient, So everything related to that market area and everything related to the Mughal history was around that area. So you had the Dariba, and then you had extended areas, leading to Chawdi Bazaar, leading to Jama Masjid, etc. Post-independence and post-Mughal history, post-Mughal history, the city sort of kept expanding southeast and westwards. Mostly it was, most of the people were living in this part of central Delhi and north of it. And then what was in what is now New Delhi was forest, thugs, and some small urban hamlets. For example, Hoskas village was an urban village, but that time it was a village, and there were fields all around. Mehroli was a village, You had Vasant Kunj, that was basically the beginnings of the Aravali range. The kind of the first outcrops were being seen over there that actually started from the ridge which starts from North Delhi. So you had all of these areas, and then as each decade passed, the city just moved a little bit by little bit. So just outside Chandni Chowk area was Daryaganj. Daryaganj became the most important, and continues till today, the publishers area. The first Delhi Stock Exchange was there. So it was also the financial kind of hub. But at the same time, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Asian Age, any newspaper, you name it, had its headquarters there. Any big publishing house, that time it was publishing houses like... gosh, I forget the names now, but there are so many.
And many of them are still there.
They're all there. Yeah. They're all there. And even now, the tradition continues because the Sunday book market happens in Daryaganj. Also, the Chor Bazaar happens around Daryaganj, which is fascinating because you go there and you can still find some fantastic exotic goods, right? And then as that expanded, when the British came in, they built Connaught Place. And then they built Lutyens Delhi. And then obviously Rashtrapati Bhavan was also built. So it kept moving a little bit south. After Lutyens Delhi, at around Lodhi Road is where they kind of drew the line, right? And then post-independence India, New Delhi came about. And then began the story of how whoever lives in Delhi is not really from Delhi, because partition happened. And when partition happened, a large portion of Delhi kind of emptied out and completely moved out of the city. The entire demographics changed.
And there was an influx of people that came in.
And that's when the city planning actually found new purpose. Now, when influx of people are coming, there are obviously separate communities coming from different places. The people who are living in Lajpat Nagar, you will see the first families that settle there come from a certain community, whereas people who live near Amar Colony, Amar Colony is known as the old furniture market of the city, and you can find some of the best carpenters around there, and they come from a particular community again from Pakistan. So then you have the professional settlement areas.
Yeah.
You had obviously important people like Sir Shobha Singh, who was buying really important and large swaths of land. So he set up Humayun Road, or Hanuman Road, sorry, around CP, which was the area of some of the biggest mansions that were coming up for Indian families. And right now it is celebrating an anniversary because it's been so much time since that area has been sort of developed. And that's one of the few roads where you can still see some of those very old houses, because it comes within that protected Lutyens bungalow zone where you cannot really so easily pull down and redevelop these houses. Then you have the professional settlements like a journalist colony, press enclave, defense colony where the old military veterans were settling down, and etc., etc. You have mostly chartered accountants and people working in factories living in East Delhi. You had West Delhi, which had a distinct population of the early entrepreneurs of Delhi from essentially the Punjabi community. You have emergence of certain slangs also that is coming. Jamna Par, people coming from Jamna Par. There's obviously
Jamna Par is a literal, like it means across the river.
The Yamuna.
Yeah.
Right? Across the Yamuna is this area called Patparganj, where the Battle of Patparganj was found, and the history of Delhi was pretty much earmarked around that particular point in time. Whereas other slurs like the new rich of West Delhi, came about, and their houses were known to be extremely opulent, extremely garish, and while these slurs have a negative terminology, I kind of celebrate it, because here there are these families that left everything in Pakistan, came to India, started their entrepreneurial ventures and built everything from scratch. And because they built everything from scratch and did well, and now they want to showcase that, guys, we did well. We want our children and husbands and wives to wear big diamonds and lots of gold and walk around and flaunt it. I say, why not? So these things...
there's definitely a lot of South Delhi snobbery, but I wonder if there's reverse snobbery. I wonder if like people who live in different parts of Delhi are like, oh, those South Delhi like...
Oh yeah,
there is, right? Yeah.
There is, because I grew up in North Delhi, and then you have the emergence of talking about North Delhi. You have the emergence of the apartment living, and the apartment living sort of started coming around because a large portions of Delhi also started getting industrialized. A lot of business and companies. Obviously, this is the capital city. While it is the political powerhouse, there is a lot of business also that happens over here. So a lot of people start coming from other cities. Professional families started settling down over here. Thus, you had the growth of the DDA apartments, the growth of community livings, from the DDA apartments of Vasant Kunj to the largest area, which is primarily flats, is actually in northwest Delhi, which is Pitampura, Rohini, Piragadi, and all of these areas. Here, you will rarely see a bungalow. Bungalows are very few amongst pretty much flats is where most people live. And there are certain communities like Marwari communities, etc., that have kind of settled there. So you had the growth of these flats because families started becoming a bit more nuclear. Even if they were kind of joint family, they started living in nuclear parts.
Yeah,
so
like you have one flat, you have
and,
one.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what's happening to the bungalow in the families that can still afford to keep them. So I feel like even the bungalows of Delhi are going in two directions. One is, of course, the builder flats. You sell it to a builder, they sell units, they maximize the space that way. But a lot of families where let's say 2 or 3 children. What they're doing is they're redeveloping the building and giving everyone a completely self-contained
Yeah.
floor,
Yeah.
which is then like a joint family in a nuclear family living space.
Yeah, kind of, the growth of private spaces. And that's also another trend that you can sort of observe architecturally. Earlier, houses, prided themselves for their big verandas and the big balconies. But now you see that those verandas and balconies are being taken in. Yes, a lot of people are doing because pollution is increasing in the city so much. So it really isn't viable to kind of sit out for long hours anymore.
That, and also now there's no sense of privacy, because I remember when we built our home, we built on a very small part of the plot, like maybe on 45 or 50% of the plot, because we wanted a large garden.
Yep.
Then on the second floor, I
And
remember.
didn't you get married in that garden?
Yeah, and I'm
And
so
that
glad
was the
I did.
old thing. So many people got married in their
Yeah,
homes,
in your homes.
in their front garden, because gardens had that space.
Yeah. And our terrace, I remember we wanted a terrace. But now the builder flats, the both on the left and right of my house are these new builder style buildings.
And now you can't sit out anymore
You
because
can't
you have
sit
people
out.
looking at you.
Exactly. And there's no sunlight. A.
Yeah.
B, really, like, who wants to be on their balcony when like your neighbor's like bathroom window is like in your face,
Correct.
So now, because of the way those buildings are being designed, they're like built right up to the boundary walls.
Absolutely.
They've taken up all the garden space. So who wants a garden or a terrace in that kind of a
First of all, you
urban
can't have a
landscape?
garden because your houses are built on stilts. That means those
Yeah.
stilts are for parking.
Well,
Thus-
even if you have a garden, you don't want to sit out in it. Like, that's what happened to us by the end of it. Like, the reason why we really just chose to like move out was, you couldn't even sit in the garden, because it was just like you had people peering at you from all sides.
And you don't have any sunshine coming in as well, because again, within those regulations, once the stilts came about, people were allowed to build more floors, which means, first of all, Delhi has always been a low-rise city. And there are very few cities that are like that.
Yeah.
Very few urban metropolises with the population that they have are like that. What that means, and that's for many reasons, and one of them being a very volatile seismic zone as well. Now, given that fact, when you're allowed to build 1 or 2 floors more above, what happens is that in those residential neighborhoods, most neighboring houses do not get any area for that sunlight. So that has a ripple effect. When you don't get sunlight in a garden or an outdoor space,
can't
you
have
suddenly
grass.
start having big windows.
Yeah.
The bigger the windows, the more the amenities you need, the more powerful the AC you need inside. The more powerful the AC you need, that means there's a bigger gush of hot wind that is coming outside. I love how Kamo is just inside this mic.
grunting away. That's the dog, guys, not me.
Yeah. So the evolution of that architecture, responding to the bursting population, number one, and then the secondary look that it is taking towards the environment and the impact it will have on the city's ecology. Delhi was again a very, very sort of ecologically rich area. It had many ponds and many lakes and a huge river. Imagine if that river was clean.
I
What
know.
beautiful riverfront
I
chilling
love
could
going to
people do?
cities that are like based around a river, and even like cities that are like densely populated, and just how they have managed to make the river. I said liver, maybe it makes sense. Like
Yeah, that
Freudian
river is
slip.
definitely affecting our liver.
But how the river is such a, it's the essential lifeline of a city. But in Delhi, like, I don't even know when I see the Yamuna, only when I'm going into Noida. I think that's the only time
Yeah,
I
it is really flanking
Yeah.
our city. I mean, there was a time when the river used to be on the ramparts of the Red Fort.
Yeah.
And then because of its shifting course, it's gone that far. But what's sad for our city and has always remained, and obviously there's a historic reason also, is that most of the industries, when they got set up in Delhi, they got set up at the riverside. So the industrial waste goes into that river. Thus, we have a foamy river. It's a black, dead
Yeah.
river that cannot have any living thing inside it. It's so toxic that you don't even feel like going to sort of see the expanse of this huge river. It is a very important Indian river.
Those images, like, and they come out every time at this point of the year when the pollution in Delhi is at an all-time high. You get those like images of that literal froth in the Yamuna.
And Chhat Puja happened right now, which is really important for the Bihari community. I hate to say it, but like I saw a lady who must have been unaware of what this froth is. She was washing her hair thinking it was
my
shampoo, yeah.
God.
So,
But yeah, I mean that's another conversation which we should speak to somebody who like works with conservation of the Yamuna. But I want to ask you two questions before we kind of like digress too much. One is, of course, going to be one of my favorite questions, which is I want you to just maybe highlight or profile some of the people that you've spoken to, because I know you visited a lot of these Delhi houses. I know you do this in two ways. One is, of course, you just like are a stalker and you take images of
The city
nice-looking
creep.
houses. You really are the city creep. And
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder if people have like asked you to pull down the images, or are they usually quite open about it? Do they even know the houses are being featured? But quite often, you like a house, you like its story, and you go and you profile the house and you speak to the people that are living inside it. Give me some of an idea of this latter. Who are these people?
They're fascinating people. So a lot of the people that I've spoken to are like amazing grandmas. I love speaking to the ladies of the house because they can tell such an intimate history of the house, right? So one of my absolute favorite lady was Auntie Madhu, who built a beautiful house in North Delhi near Delhi University, right across from the Vidhan Sabha. The Vidhan Sabha is the seat of power for the Delhi government. And her house was right across from it. It was built by an old Nazi escapist Austrian immigrant who had come to India to build several houses. So he built the Patodi Palace, for example. He built several bungalows around diplomatic Delhi. He built several houses in Hyderabad and in the south. And he also built the house of this humble family who had come from Pakistan. So Auntie Madhu told me the story of her mother who loved to play bridge. And the entire architecture of the house was devised around the bridge room, which was the main evening activity of the house, where anyone was allowed to come in the house, was offered amazing cold coffee and nimbu pani, because this was a non-alcoholic house. They did not drink. But they loved offering cold coffee and playing hours and hours of bridge. The house had the most beautiful, dramatic, Baroque, Bauhaus was an architectural movement that was brought into India by this particular architect. His name is Heinz, and he's built several houses around the city.
Is Heinz the one who did Tara Apartments also?
No, that's a different architect. That's Charles Correa.
Okay.
But Heinz built. He was known for these beautiful staircases, wide. And how she described, she said, my mother, Ma, she used to call her Maji, always wanted the staircases to be very low height, because when she walked down the staircase in her sari, she didn't want a very big step. You know, she wanted a graceful walk down the stair. And obviously these balustraded staircases were like curved in that manner. So, the history of how people aspire to build their houses came through these grandma stories in such an evocative way. I absolutely love them. Another house that I documented was a Tara apartment house. Obviously, a young girl lives there, but with her cats. But to sort of hear the history of how those houses, and she has her apartment and her family is just 2 doors down, has another apartment over there. To live so individually yet so together is fascinating to me. Tara Apartments is a typical red brick facade that Delhi is known for. Gulmohar Park is also another neighborhood that has a lot of these red brick facades. So I love that. And also to hear all the gossips of community living. In Delhi city, you can hear some really saucy gossip. Also, just try joining an RWA group.
Oh my
I call them
God.
I call them groups of violent conversation. They are so...
I wanted to do a story on the toxicity in the RWA groups.
It's intensely crazy. The other day, I met another grandma who lives in this neighborhood called Mayfair Gardens, which is a Sindhi colony, and mainly Sindhis live there. And she lives there alone. She's unmarried, and she used to have her father live there. Her father was one of the first few people who pretty much set up the petroleum industry in India and used to live in Digboy, Assam. Digboy, obviously, she told me the interesting story of why the place was called Digboy. But she told me how her father insisted that his study room was built in a circular manner, looking like a petroleum well. And, I mean, I can go on, and I'm slowly sort of compiling these stories so that there can
Yeah, I think it would be so nice to have like a corresponding page, which are the people of Delhi houses alongside Delhi houses. Because
Absolutely.
sometimes the story of the house is the story of the people that live
It's
within
absolutely,
that
you're so
house.
right, yeah.
Or at least, and I think one thing that is happening even in the builder apartments is that at least they look so different from inside. Like, I mean, people have become so house proud. I think we grew up in families that were very house proud.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people in India, that hasn't been the case. Like, maybe historically, or I don't know, maybe I could be completely wrong. But there has been a big shift in that. People are all becoming very house proud. I think COVID has, sort of necessitated that shift even more.
Yeah, it
where
has
you
taught
suddenly
people how to
realize,
nest.
yeah, where you realize the value of the space that you come home to.
Yeah.
But sort of like,
But I want to
Yeah.
I want to go back to the former part of your question, because it's really important as to how do I select these houses and who do I approach. So I have a very clear set of rules that guide me in how I document these houses. And yes, I'm the city creep, but one of the things that is absolutely core central rule is to respect the privacy of the people, because these are their personal homes. So one of the common factor in most of these posts, unless the family says that we're happy to share the address, the address is never shared, but the neighborhood or the locality, I kind of never share a very indicative locality of the house. It's extremely broad, you know. So that's one of the rules. The second is, if I do photograph without permission, it would only be something that's on the main road that is under public view. Having wanting to photograph it, I do always do approach the guard to ask if there's someone inside and if I can seek permission. Most often, a lot of those main road houses are quite abandoned because, again, the city is so noisy. It's not a quiet city at all. None of the Indian cities are known for being quiet, really. So most of those families are not there really living in those main road houses. So that's how I photograph it. The third thing that I started was a postcard project. I send a bunch of postcards to people who can kind of drop it in people's mailboxes with a small little love letter for appreciating their house, and then giving my contact details and details of the page, requesting them so that I can come and archive it. So that's how I really sort of go about kind of documenting the house. Once I was asked, just once of all the times that I've been running this page, and it's been more than 3 years now, to pull down an image. It was the picture of a gate, and this gate was on the main road of GK2, and this is like anyone who's gone to GK2 has seen that gate. So I took a picture, and I generally always blur out the address if the address comes in the photograph. But this was a very early photograph, and I hadn't done it. And that really taught me that no, the address can never be shown. You have to blur it out. But
Pause for the dogs. They really think they're guard
just
dogs.
you can open the door.
Good guard dogs.
They're the best guard dogs. No, Kawa, come. Come on. So I really learned my lesson about kind of erasing the thing. But as soon as I posted the picture, the most magical thing happened. I got a message from Lahore. of someone sending me a picture of the exact same gate. It was an iron gate with two sort of peacocks coming and meeting like that,
No
and parrots.
way.
And someone sent me a picture of the exact same gate in all white. This was a colorful gate that was in all
No
white. And they
way.
said, so, it really brought to me as to there were these design patterns that existed not only in Delhi, but
Love it.
across the north.
Yeah.
That, and that made me do a story much later about welding patterns of Delhi. I started noticing gates look the same from a particular decade. Terrazzo floors were of a particular decade and then die down. So
This is like almost an unspoken consistency because you're using probably the same welders who are influenced by each other in the same locality.
And certain design patterns kind of were part of the imagination of people from that time period. The family obviously saw the post. I mean, as soon as I uploaded the post, by the way, this was when Delhi Houses barely had even 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
Okay. And that post got more than 10,000 likes within 2 days. And then the next day, the family said, this is our house, you got to pull it down. When someone tells me to do that, immediately my response is yes, immediately I will pull it down this second. That was the only time. But, in the past, there's some people, family friends of the particular family whose house I've featured with permission, are like, have you taken permission from these people? And I've actually gone into the DMs. I was like, yes, I have. It's actually, with their consent and everything. But when I did pull down that particular post of that gate, I did share with them the message I got from Lahore. I said, I just want to share this with you just so that you know. And don't worry, this will never be posted again. This will never be shared again. And I'm so sorry to offend you, but only because it was on the main road is that I posted it. But
I think now you have less of those like.
I don't. That was the only time I ever had that.
Yeah, and also even like now, I think most of your posts are like with permission and after speaking
most
to the
of them are with
people.
permission, and the ones that are on the main road are posted so generally.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
sometimes
I can't tell where they are.
Yeah, nobody will be able to tell. Like, I'm very, very particular. I think maintaining the privacy. And a lot of times when you post something, a lot of people on the page will be like, location, where is this? And I make it a point to very humbly share with them, this is someone's private home. I'm not in liberty to share the address or the location with you. But thank you so much for appreciating the beautiful home. I will definitely tell them
Anika,
that.
would you ever post a builder flat?
No. I could post a contemporary architect-built house that speaks to the architectural fabric of the city that kind of, in a way, tells the story of the city. But a builder flat certainly doesn't. It's a typology that maybe I would describe once as to why Delhi switched to the builder flat, why it was a convenient choice collectively for the people of the city. But not as an architectural design language. That's something for someone else to do, not for me.
And is Delhi Houses going to ever evolve beyond an Instagram page, or you're happy with the platform and your medium for now?
It most certainly should, where the categorization and the documentation of the city is far more accessible and far more interactive, like the typologies of the house, the histories of the people, the habits of the, all these distinctions are well cataloged. I like it being an Instagram page right now because it's just accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Given the footprint that Instagram has and the accessibility it has, it makes sense. But it needs to evolve into something else. And I'm slowly thinking through it. I'm not in a rush to come up with, it could be a website, it could be a book, it could be a coffee table. I definitely, whatever I come up with, I want it to be kind of freely available to everyone. This is not a page for any kind of monetization. This is purely an archive.
Public service.
Public service.
How nice.
Yeah.
And what about your favorite neighborhood in Delhi? Like, if I wanted you to take me for now that I'm an early morning person, begrudgingly, that I am that human being now. If I wanted you to take me for an early morning winter walk in your favorite neighborhood of Delhi, where would you take me?
Very hard to pick a favorite neighborhood, but an early morning winter walk in Old Delhi or Daryaganj is always...
that's too cliched, Anika. No.
Okay. Then I think I would take you to... It's very tough to pick, but maybe around Mehroli.
Okay.
Because over there, not only will you see the diplomatic enclaves of from diplomatic enclaves of Vasant Vihar to the DDA flats of Vasant Kunj to the old city. There was an old city in Mehroli as well. You can see that to the Lal Dora industrial areas of Mehroli. I think that could be very interesting. The other neighborhood that I really like is some parts of Kamla Nagar near Delhi University. And that's where the huge Hindu undivided family houses are, huge sort of Art Deco, Art Nouveau, opulent houses, but at the same time you have the professors' houses nearby. At the same time you have the really small tiny roomed houses for the university students. So that kind of array, like North Delhi, I love that for that. Then there is portions of West Delhi that I really like. Shalimar Bagh, Rajouri Garden. Shalimar Bagh again has a Mughal history associated with it, and the houses around that park are also pretty epic. West Delhi for apartments, the kind of apartments that came out, all cement finish, all kind of stone finish apartments, very post-industrial, dark and grey, and a hustler's neighborhood. So there are just so many parts of Delhi. I mean, they're all my favorites because of the different stories that they tell. So
we'll have to do very many morning walks. I don't think we're covering
enough,
this in
a lot
one.
of people have asked me to do walks, and I've never done walks, and I'm still conceptualizing it because I think like doing a walk around people's neighborhoods and looking inside other people's houses is kind of infringement of privacy. So
voyeuristic, but
lots of people have told me like, why don't you organize a walk to view these houses? And I'm like, I've still not settled into the idea, but I am actually developing a series of walks, which maybe I'll do some testers this winter, and then officially these walks can only happen during the winter time or during the late fall, because otherwise it's just or during the spring, but it cannot
You've given
happen
us
during
like
the summer.
now much wider window. You said winter,
but it's essentially
fall, and
one
spring.
time period. It's from late fall till early spring.
Yeah.
That's like your winter time essentially.
Winter time.
Fall and spring is like one and
I
a
know
half
you're
weeks
really
each.
sort of like adding on seasons to Delhi when we know they don't exist.
No,
But we pretend. that they
Delhi
do.
has 4 distinct seasons.
yeah.
No, Delhi has very, very distinct. In fact, a lot of cities are jealous of Delhi for its distinct seasons. I mean, we have a long summer and a long winter, but
And the rest of the seasons, your spring and your fall, are literally 2 weeks long.
yeah, and then we have also we have 5 seasons actually. We have
Monsoon
spring,
is also summer only. Okay, but this is a
spring.
different.
No, monsoon is not summer because summer is actually supposed to be
No,
dry.
I'm honestly joking to a large degree. I'm just sort of like reflecting on the fact that it all feels like
extreme, but they're all very extreme.
Yeah, it all
you know?
feels very extreme. And then winter, which is supposed to be, right now it's November, it's the best weather in Delhi. The days are nice and warm and the evenings are cool, but it's polluted as hell and the mosquitoes are still
can't
buzzing
be
around.
out.
So I think you've also caught me at a time where I'm like bemoaning Delhi weather.
We have 3 air purifiers working in this room right now.
Yeah, so that is also our reality. But is Delhi houses like, I know it's a love letter to Delhi in a way, but are we looking at Delhi through rose tinted glasses? Because I do feel like we tend to do that. I think now that we're like literally approaching our 40s, we become those people that look at our childhood and we say, oh, we saw parrots in the tree outside our house and the skies were blue and there was no pollution and the homes were all lovely and the people that lived in these homes were wonderful, and everything like that's new and post 2000 sucks. Is that just a sort of a trope that we're falling into, or is there really, really something very special about the period that you're documenting?
I think there is something very special about the period that we're documenting because it's when independent India and then liberalized. So we grew up in a liberalized India and our parents grew up in a recently independent India. And that's a really important time for the people to be extremely motivated in sort of building a country together. And obviously we lived in a capital city in their small ways. So putting that romantic lens, I mean, I'm a romantic at heart, so putting that romantic lens, I don't see any harm in it, because there's an element of celebration. There's an element of appreciating true grit against everything, because it's not as if we had independence and like finally we are free. We had independence and then came partition, and then came the tedious politics of the largest democracy of the world, right? So and we in Delhi are far more closer to witnessing that than anyone else. So I think those rose tinted glasses are there to a great extent.
But by choice, you feel?
By choice, because I would like to write about it in a certain way. Having said that, but that's not the only way I'm documenting it. There have been times that I've also documented the rougher sides of the city, and man, have I gotten trolled for that.
Really?
Yes, I've gotten trolled for that so badly, where I spoke about a water problem that really tortures the people living in a particular neighborhood. And some house proud people, I mean, bless them, they were just like, how dare you talk about our neighborhood like that? So, people feel very passionate about their homes. So it's difficult to give a critical perspective in that way, because people are like, oh, you are, because they also assume that you are living in a castle somewhere and looking down at it like poverty porn. And then some people also kind of talk about, oh, you're only documenting such kinds of houses. Why don't you go and document other kinds of houses? And I'm like, I'm happy to document any house. Would you take me? Because I need to seek permission. There's a process. Obviously, Instagram has a certain audience. So the reach is taking me to certain places, and I'm trying to go to most of them. And I myself, and like everything that has been documented on it is 99% by me. 1% is by submissions, no matter if I put in the postcard project, no matter if I put out clear call outs on the page saying that please submit. This is a community submissions page. So I try to be very mindful when taking a critical lens of a particular thing, but at the same time,
there's also enough criticism in this world. I'm very happy that it's like a joyous documentation. I think it's nice to have
and
that.
I like the tone. I mean, I like the tone that Delhi Houses has taken, because each house is so special. Each house is so important. Each house has such an important story to share.
Homes, if everyone's homes where you've grown up, and I mean, we've had the privilege to really live in beautiful homes. I mean, I really do consider myself very lucky. I think at every point in my life I have.
You lived in a DDA house, and that was beautiful. You lived in a Delhi bungalow, and that is beautiful. And now you live in a farmhouse, that is beautiful. I grew up in a village farmhouse, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful. I grew up in the typical DDLJ type farmhouse, which is like a tiny house in the middle of a big agricultural field, which you visited me. And then you saw that house kind of getting built into a bigger house because my parents could at that particular point in time. And then I've lived in a tiny Green Park apartment, in a back lane somewhere for a long time. And then now finally in my own family house. So we've lived around the city, You've lived from Hoskas, you've gone to the hinterlands of the farm, and I've come from the hinterlands of the farms into the city right now. So each house is sort of beautiful because it's such a collection of so many lives
and of phases in people's lives. I mean,
absolutely.
And I think that's also like your homes tell a story. And this is maybe a personal anecdote that I'll sort of end on. But like when my parents, when their marriage hit a rough spot, my mom moved out of like our family home, which was a really beautiful,
gorgeous
bungalow house, and moved into a DDA apartment for her freedom, literally. And that's what it represented to her. And I think where you live and how you live just speaks volumes about like phases of your life and how they shape you. And I think that's why Delhi Houses is such a wonderful documentation of, I don't know, the story of the city. The recent story of the city.
Everything you work hard towards, everything that you want to make in your life, at the end of the day comes and lives in your home, right? So it's a celebration of everything you've done. It's a celebration of every person. So I'm glad you see it that way.
Yeah. So now the next steps. Let's see. Let's go for this morning walk.
Yeah. Watch the page for one special walk that might be coming up in the winter.
No, we can't watch the page because Sukrit is not giving us a discount on filming this walk. If he does that, then we can.
we need our producer to kind of come with us outdoors and not make us sit in a room all the time. Everyone, please write to Sukrit to
No,
tell him to do
Sukrit
it.
is like, I'll do it, but it's going to cost you guys that much. And then we're
I
like,
need a cinematographer.
then we're like, no. We'll just sit here with the dogs.
Yeah, and we want to
It's
take you to
nice and
such cool
comfortable.
places like the Ridge and everything. And Sukrit's like, nah.
Okay,
Anyway.
guys, thank you for tuning in. And Anika, thank you for starting Delhi Houses.
Thank you for following it, and thank you for submitting your house on it.
Yeah, both my houses have been
Yes,
featured.
all your houses. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.